very excited to be here. Do you guys have a Facebook page?
We do.
I would like to know what it is so we can see that I can participate. Yes, please. Yes, please.
I see.
Yeah. I see the top of the head. Yeah, a coffee hour. Yeah.
They have done a great because it wasn't, I don't know exactly what was happening, but not much.
Took it over. Yeah. Sure.
It's a very good.
I mean, that keeps me in touch with things.
Okay. Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Linda Pratt, and I'm a member of the Board of Trustees. Welcome to our service. Unitarian Universalism encourages an open-ended search for meaning in life and a commitment to asking our values to shape our actions. We are a pluralistic religion that draws wisdom from many sources. We welcome all people into our beloved community of whatever age, race, class, ethnicity, physical ability, sexual orientation, gender identity, or religious background. We especially welcome those worshiping with us for the first time today. Guests are welcome to participate in any activities in our community.
Hi.
Welcome team members are wearing green name badges and are ready to answer any questions you may have if you are a visitor or new to this congregation. Pastoral care team members are wearing yellow name badges and are able to talk with you if you have life transitions or need assistance. We invite everyone to join us downstairs after service for coffee and conversation so that we can get to know each other better. Thank you for being with us today as we welcome our new minister, Reverend Sabrina Trupia. Reverend Trupia grew up in Italy, where she lived till at the age of 20. They then moved to Canada for university, and as well as the United States. They identify as non-binary, and their pronouns, which I must remember, are they and them. They're married to Ed and have a daughter, Isabella. They live in Edwardsville, Illinois, outside of St. Louis. They have a PhD in chemistry and worked as a geologist, chemist, and biochemist before getting the call to ministry. Reverend Trupia has a master's in divinity from the Eden Seminary in St. Louis. They were ordained this year in Montclair, New Jersey, where they were not interim minister, intern minister, thank you. They are passionate about social and environmental justice and ending oppressions. In their spare time, she enjoys walking, reading, yoga, meditation, and napping. Welcome, Reverend Trupia.
Good morning. My name is Karen Fowler, and I've had the pleasure of leading the UU Ukes for the past 3 years. We are a beginner-friendly group trying to choose songs that have fewer chords and are in easier keys. The songs we choose span several decades, and we cover artists such as Lead Belly, Dolly Parton, The Grateful Dead, and Bruno Mars. What you may not realize is that every ukulele is packed with magic, just like a unicorn. To release that magic, all you have to do is wrap one hand around the neck and stroke its belly with the other hand, and abracadabra, the magic of music. So if you have a ukulele in your back corner where the magic is all bottled up and you want to release it, come join us. Our next rehearsal is August 25th, and we'll save a chair for you.
Good morning. How y'all doing? Awesome. The opening words today are by my colleague and friend, the Reverend Linda Susan Ulrich, and they are entitled, "Begin Your Journey Home." Come now, all who are broken and cracked. Come to the place where your shattered pieces are the raw materials of mosaic and kintsugi. Here you will find welcome among the armless dolls and cozy pilled sweaters, loved exactly as they are. Come now, all who are thirsty and burned. Come to the place where cool waters and aloe soothe your bedraggled soul. Drink your fill and salve your skin. Then fill your canteen and return once more to the struggle. Knowing the well will remain unobstructed, come now all who long for the stars, come to the place where that vision of infinity is written upon the people's hearts. Hold it until you've memorized the way. Set your compass to point towards hope and begin your journey home. Please join me as we say the unison words to light the chalice, and as I light the chalice, which, okay, there you go, first time. Our opening song is number 1000, the first song in the Teal hymnal, Morning Has Come. Please rise in body or spirit as we sing. Yay! And now we have another musical piece for our responsive reading, and you can stay seated. So here's how it's going to work. Correct me if I'm wrong. Gates is going to play the music part once, and as you can see in your hymnals, there are words which we will say in unison, and then we sing the musical piece also, or the words in not italic, I can say them, and then we sing the musical piece in unison. Okay, this is my first day, okay? Right. So, again, Gates is gonna play it once, then I'm gonna say the narrator part, and then we're gonna sing in unison. That's what I meant to say. All right. For remaining silent when a single voice would have made a difference, we forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. each time that our fears have made us rigid and inaccessible, we forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. For each time we have struck out in anger without just cause, for each time that our greed has blinded us to the needs of others, we begin again. For the selfishness that sets us apart and alone, for falling short of the admonitions of the Spirit, for losing sight of our unity, for those and for so many acts, both evident and subtle, which have fueled the illusion of separateness, and now let's continue our service by greeting each other. Is doing it.
hello, is this on? You can hear? Oh, good. First of all, my name is spelled right, no problem, okay? And I would love to have the children come forward if you want to come forward. I would love to see you up here, your beautiful faces with me. Anybody else? Now, I was told it was on. Was I too far away? Is that what happened? Okay. I will, if I can do that and read at the same time. We'll see. Okay, this morning, for Message of All Ages, I'm reading a poem entitled Religious Instructions for Young Casualties. And I would have left off the casualties, but I'm sure the poet had some reason for using that title that I just don't know about. But anyway, here we go. Believe in yourself. Be all that you can. Look for your fate among the stars. Imagine you are your best when being yourself, the best way you can. Believe in yourself. Be all you want to be. Open your mind, a window to the world, different ways of thinking, seeing, but be yourself. It's the best. Become your dreams, visions to live by, no matter what anyone says. Believe you can do it. Day by day, a little at a time, be patient. Believe you can find a way to assemble the puzzle called life, forming pictures that make some kind of sense, even when pieces fall scattered to the ground, disappearing into the finite void, forever lost, never to be found, choosing your future from those that are left. It's one piece from some other dimension. Maybe a corner triangle shape of sky, or zigzag of ocean floor with seaweed and one school of fish, or maybe a centerpiece on the table in some fancy dining room, or patch of windows, window lace curtains next to flowered bouquet, wind blowing through sunlight, which some artists will paint someday, or bouncing feet on the moon, walking in giant moon leaps, talking moon talk, deep into research in your flying laboratory. Be all that you can, but believe in yourself. Climb the stairway of your imagination, one step after another, growing like the leaf, blossoming into a great tree, complete with squirrels, nests, universe all around. Be all that you can. Just believe in yourself. And now, if you all would like to sing the children out.
We come together as a community to share the joys, the concerns, the sorrows, and the milestones of our lives. At this time of sharing, we take a moment to read your entries from the Book of Joys and Concerns, which I have here right now, but typically it's located on the table at the entrance of the sanctuary. So if you have a joy or concern that you want to share, you can use it. So I am going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to start with the sorrows and then move on to the joys. So we have one sorrow here in the book from Cindy Loudon. Her dad, Ken Knapp, has entered hospice Cindy is there with them now in Texas. She asks for prayers and thoughts for a peaceful transition. Do we have anything from online? No? Okay. So let's send prayers and thoughts to Ken as he prepares for a transition, and pause. And now, the joys. Lori McCullum wants to thank Alice Martin for weeding the flower bed on Eastern Avenue. That very important work. Thank you. Where are you? And Darcy wants to extend many thanks to Mac McDonald and John for sharing the lovely garden flowers with the UUCQC meet and greet. They were lovely, I agree, and thanks for me also. Thank you. Anything else from online? No? Okay, that's okay. Then, for what has been shared and what remains in the quiet sanctuary of our hearts, we are grateful. Let us now be in a spirit of prayer or meditation. God of many names, none of which is big enough to contain you, please hear our prayers, the ones we say out loud, and the ones we don't, and the ones we can't even think about because they feel like asking too much. The prayers we pray when we feel afraid or overwhelmed, or the prayers for when we're full of gratitude for this one more precious day. May we find inside ourselves the power and determination, the joy and the stubbornness. May we find resistance. May we be a beacon for others who too need resisting. May we cultivate endurance because this life isn't always easy, but also it isn't always difficult, especially when we help each other, when we reach out and connect, when we hope for one another. For those of us today who need it, may we see where the help can come from, and may we see how we can be of help. As we work for the liberation of all, these things we pray in all of your holy names. Amen. This congregation is supported by the pledges of our members and friends. The offering provides an additional opportunity for expressing generosity by those attending today's worship. We are sharing the plate, offering 50% this month with the Quad City Sanctuary Coalition. Please be as generous as you are able. So I was told to preach about beginnings because this is the theme of the summer, beginnings. Do you remember the first time you stepped into a UU church, or if you were born a UU, the first moment you realized, this is it, I'm staying? Do you remember not just the feelings, but also like the physicality of it? How did you feel in your body? The first time I set foot in a UU church, it was summer, late July to be precise. I went with my family, looking for what else? Religious education for my young child, and looking for a spiritual outlet for myself that wouldn't require spiritual allegiance to some thing or being that I wasn't completely sure about. Religious gatekeeping has always been a thorn in my side, even back then when I really didn't quite know that this feeling had theological underpinnings. So anyway, we all dressed up nicely because church, right? And because we were new to Unitarian Universalism, we didn't know what to expect. So we parked way too far from the church, first of all, because the first UU church of Alton, Illinois was on a street with at least two other churches similar looking with the same stones, and we couldn't read any of the signs because all of these churches are on a hill. The locals call it Heathen Hill to distinguish it from the presumably saintly hill where the Catholic Church is. I remember regretting my choice of clothes almost immediately getting out of the car in the sweltering heat and humidity of a southern Illinois summer. And I remember the cool air coming from the century-old sanctuary that welcomed us, and the usher who gave us the order of service and the sticky name tags that I see some of you are wearing, and asked us, did you want to fill a request for a more permanent name tag? I hadn't been inside of a church for the purposes of worship since I was a teenager, And having been raised Catholic, I had no idea what a church should look like. So the first thing I noticed was the lack of anything on the wall behind the pulpit, no crucifix specifically. The background was a plain white wall with a round stained glass over top. Good, I thought. I wasn't buying into any creed, not even for the price of admission, so good. I don't really remember, and I'm sad to say, I don't remember what the sermon was about, but I do remember thinking that the hymns sounded strangely relatable. And I know that I'm the minister and I'm giving a sermon, but like, it is frequently the music we remember more. I know. I remember being moved by the music and the friendliness of the people at coffee hour, the whole atmosphere of the service, the spiritual but not religious vibe that fit my vibe. And that convinced me to keep coming back. It didn't take long for me to realize that I'd found my spiritual home, that I found a faith which saved me, not in the sense that I was dying, but in the sense that I wasn't really living. Everything in those early days was new and exciting. Discovering new people, new ideas, the freedom to explore my spiritual side. You get it, right? It was great. As you may have guessed it from the front cover of the order of service, I originally wanted to title the sermon, "Welcome to the First Day of the Rest of Your Life," because, well, it's a new congregational year, although we don't officially start until water service. I am new to you, you're new to me, and everything is shiny and fun, and it really is. I've had a great time this weekend. Thank you. But while it's a good phrase, it doesn't really speak to the whole idea I wanted to convey. And I don't mean to be a killjoy. I'm not. I think the beginnings are great, and newness is fun. And in fact, in some respects, we should live every day like every day is a new beginning. We should always be curious about the new day and not falter in that curiosity. But we're human, right? I think Lutheran pastor and religious rock star Nadia Bolz-Weber is right when she says that when you participate in the life of a congregation, whether as a simple congregant or a lay leadership or other, the sheen will wear off the shiny bauble, and it is not, she says, a matter of if, but a matter of when it happens. And when it does, oh boy, is it ever disappointing. Do you remember it happening to you? All right, because it happened to me. Nobody is immune. For me, it started gradually, a sermon I didn't quite agree with, some miscommunication, some sort of argument, a dash of congregational dysfunction and conflict. And later, as I started to become a minister, I learned these are all things that can and do happen in a congregation. And I also learned that it's not necessarily the end of the world if they happen, and there's always solutions. But I didn't know that at the time. There is a reason they call ministers religious professionals, because we train in understanding how to handle these situations. We do our best. I don't claim to know everything, but anyway, back then my early excitement gradually gave way to disillusionment. And at some point, I found that I completely lost track of my spirit. I didn't feed it, I didn't heed it, so I thought I didn't need it, right? When we don't care, when we don't take care of our spiritual needs, we end up feeling empty, dissatisfied, questioning our beliefs, and we ended up feeling disconnected and feeling alone. We ask ourselves, why do I still come back to this community? Do I believe in this? Is it me? Is it something else? Is it them? Friends, this is a dangerous place to be spiritually, because we might leave and never come back. We might lose the faith that once felt like home, that made us feel alive. Or, if we stay, we might run out of meaningful spiritual questions to ask. And we need to stay curious about our spiritual journey, otherwise it will wilt, become nihilism. The quest for truth and meaning in our lives needs to be lively, and this cannot happen only at the beginning of things. So during this period of crisis, I didn't leave, although I may have wanted to at times. But I sought the advice of the minister, and I found comfort through reading about our faith traditions, looking to history and theology to make sense of what was going on in my spirit. I'm a nerd. I like history and theology, though I didn't know about that at the time. One book that I read at that time in particular stands out for opening up new ways of thinking for me, thinking about the divine, about community, and about hope. I brought the book. The name of this book is A House for Hope by John Burens and Rebecca Parker. And the subtitle is The Promise of Progressive Religion for the 21st Century. It came out in the early 2000s. It's not out of date. This is a book I go back to often. If you look inside, it's all scribbled. There is little tabs. I use it a lot. This is a theological exploration of hope that uses the metaphor of a house to describe our faith, and each chapter is like the floor, the walls, the roof, and within it, hiding, kind of like medicine and a treat for a pet. It develops the thematics of theological thought, but in a way that is accessible to those who don't know what eschatology means, for example. Okay, maybe I should spend a few words explaining how I use the term theology, because we're UUs and I can hear people like sort of recoiling. But I use the term a lot, so we'll get used to it. A lot of people think theology literally, and that's what it literally means, is the study of God. I think that that's a very narrow definition, and I think that I use it as the study of the realm where big questions and big answers of life reside. Who are we? What's the purpose of our lives? What do we promise each other? It doesn't necessarily involve God, but for full disclosure, it does for me. So I think we're all theologians because we all have these questions. Why? Especially in times of crisis. And I believe that if we tend to our theology and our spirit before the crisis, we'll find ourselves better prepared to handle them. And by the way, eschatology is the study of ideas about the end of the world and of humanity. Anyway, A House for Hope was written in answer to life-denying theologies for which some people are less valuable than others, for instance, worldviews that with their rigidity and individualism are not life-giving, and which are some types of conservative Christianity that give, in general, Christianity a bad name where it shouldn't have it. Each chapter contains a different way to look at hope. Sources of hope include, but are not limited to, reclaiming Christian terminology, things like salvation and holiness, and things as things that happen during our lifetime, not in the hereafter. And this turns them into values we can work for. Hope in worship and spiritual practices, hope in the freedom to, if we want, interpret that divine principle however it fits our understanding, even as a being in process growing with us as we grow. But the idea in the book that relates to what to do when the sheen wears off the bauble that I was talking about earlier, the idea that allowed me to begin again in love, is the idea that congregations can be communities of resistance and care, and it says in the book, can ground life in shared rituals that nourish and strengthen people spiritually, emotionally, psychologically, and intellectually, providing a deep foundation for courageous and meaningful living. A deep foundation for courageous and meaningful living. The crisis of confidence in my faith and in the ability of my own community to help was compounded by some amount of conflict, as I mentioned, conflict that was largely below the surface, but that had a profound effect on the life of the congregation. Again, we're human, right? And because we're human, we will someday break covenant. And that is not inherently a bad thing. Conflicts can resolve, and we can make, through resolving conflicts, relationships stronger. But at the time, I was still a layperson, not really trained to face conflict that showed up overtly or covertly. I still thought conflict was bad, a zero-sum game with winners and losers, and something to absolutely avoid. I have since learned that conflict can be part of that courageous and meaningful living in community that I just talked about. Reverend Teresa Coley, as the author of a book called Transforming Conflict, which is used mostly for clergy, which may very well be the best, most spiritual, and yet most practical advice on managing congregational conflict. Reverend Cooley invites us to think of conflict as the source for spiritual growth. The source for spiritual growth, conflict. All right. She says that when we envision conflict as transformation, we can effect constructive change processes that reduce violence, increase justice, and respond to real-life problems in human relationships. Wow. How do we do that? Well, the last lines of the responsive hymn we sang offers a hint. We have to forgive ourselves and each other and be willing to begin again in love. But why should we do that? And that's where the last verse is important. The last verse says, "For so many acts, both evident and subtle, which have fueled the illusion of separateness, we begin. We forgive ourselves and each other, and we begin again in love." Because we are interconnected. We Unitarian Universalists are a people of covenant. A covenant is a promise. We value, above all, the promise that we make each other to abide by our shared values. I was happy to see that this congregation has the covenant of right relationships plastered everywhere in the book with the words, and I even have a copy. I love that. And sometimes just assuming that having a covenant written up, the words on the paper, will save us is not enough. We have to be that promise. We have to be the covenant. I always make the example of kids in RE. They decide what will be allowed or not allowed in their classroom, and they write it on the board, and they abide by it. And they break covenant constantly. The point of that is to have them sincerely try to repair, sincerely try to apologize and mean it. And that's how we learn to start over. And that is why the why is important. So what do adults do? We listen deeply to each other. This is in your covenant of right relations. We sometimes have to calm down a minute before responding. And we have to hold each other accountable for the things we promise each other. This is a practice. It is a spiritual practice, and as such, it needs to be repeated, because when we are very emotional in the middle of an argument, if we haven't practiced, everything goes out the window. And we remember our interconnection. So this summer I was a witness to an example of conflict transformation that showed me its power, the power of covenant, and the power of keeping love at the center. I don't know if you went to GA this year. It was on Zoom. I was a delegate, and I attended the business part of GA, where we vote. I wanted to be part of the historical vote to change the wording of the Article 2 bylaws. That's a huge deal, and that's for another sermon, I promise. I'll talk about that some other time. One of the other things that get discussed at GA are business resolutions. They are not business and financial transaction, but they are, business resolutions enable the staff of the UUA to carry out what it says in the resolution, to offer resources to member congregations and to fund some projects. I know it sounds boring, but this year, the resolution touched me personally, because the business resolution that we were voting on said embracing transgender, non-binary, and intersex people is a fundamental expression of UU religious values. As you can probably imagine, the debate period, there's a debate period for each business resolution. This debate became increasingly conflictual and hurtful for some of us that identify in the category. Words were said that cannot be unsaid by other members. That's not what I witnessed that was uplifting, but the proposer of the resolution gets the last 90 seconds of debate to finish off, to close the debate. The proposer was Reverend Jikaren Olahoya, who used all her 90 seconds to say this, and I will tell you everything she said. I hope I can get through without choking up, because it's important. Remember, this was on Zoom, and at times when you're on the internet, whether you're on Zoom or not visible, you become bolder. People become theoretical. So she saw all that and said this: To my trans, non-binary, intersex, or gender diverse beloveds, lean in, lean in. I love you. I love you. I love you. Please do not leave the space without feeling my love and the love of others who see you as divine. I love you. You are divine. I love you. You are holy. I love you. You know who you are. I love you. You are worthy of being whoever you need to be to survive and thrive in this world. I love you, and I will say it for 50 more seconds if I need to. I love you, 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 I love you. Do not leave the space without knowing that you are loved. If you need a reminder, she says, call me, email me, text me. What we will not do in this space is let you go another moment believing anything other than the fact that you are loved. So while Reverend Jacaren probably didn't appease those opposed to the resolution, and in fact might have even angered them further, she transformed this conflict into an opportunity for spiritual growth. Let me break it down. First of all, she did pastoral care to those of us who were hurt by the remarks. She repaired the harm, and she modeled behavior for those who were watching. And by declaring that she and others will have our back, whatever the vote ended up being, she restored our trust in the process and in each other. And finally, her declaration that love is what matters lifted up the thing that while debate is good, opposition to our human dignity is not. And by the way, the resolution passed with 91.8% of the vote. So as we enjoy the newness of our relationship, let us also build the capacity to be transformed by love in both ourselves and each other, so that we may continue to center love and learn to begin again in love, again and again and again and again. May it be so. Please rise as you're willing and able for song number 1010 in the Teal hymnal, We Give Thanks. I was asked to provide some opening and closing words for the pastoral care meeting on Thursday afternoon. And so I brought this book by Reverend Julian Jamaica Soto, and figured I'd use it for the closing words because, and they come from a longer poem called We Hold On, but I'm just going to read a little piece of it. We gather, Unitarian Universalists, certain only of our power to be human, finding ourselves committed to keeping our word and being our covenant. And when we fail to keep our promises, we don't throw them away, labeled as impossible. We take up our courage. We begin again. We hold on. Go in peace. Amen.
I know.